Hey everyone, it's May and welcome back to my channel. This video is going to be my summer reads and watches. I've just got London fog here that I just made. I'm just going to go over the books, movies, and TV shows that I've watched since I think June was the last time I did this video when I did my quarantine reads and watches, so now I'm just going to do a summer wrap up. I think I'll probably do a fall one in December, and then I may try to do just like 2 months next year when I do these, because I do want to keep doing these because I think it's fun, but I think I'm going to realize in this one too that there's just so many things to talk about that it'll probably be better if I do them more frequently. But let's get into it. So we'll do books first. The first book I read is Why We Sleep by Matthew Walker, and I listened to it on audiobook, and to be completely honest, I wish I had not read this book. It's nonfiction and it's basically all about the importance of sleep, and spoiler alert, is really important, and I just really didn't want to know all this information about how important it is and all the detrimental effects to your body when you don't get enough sleep. Like, I'm telling you guys, like, it affects everything, like legitimately everything. Your mood, your energy level, your ability to lose weight, your ability to focus, your ability to remember things, like everything. And like, it has like links with diseases later on in life if you consistently don't get enough sleep. Is bad. So if you want to learn more about that, it was a great book, and it's definitely very scientific. He splits it up into different chapters, and then in each chapter it goes over some studies that were done, and he talks about the conclusions and what they found and what that means. So I definitely don't read a lot of books like that because science like goes over my head a lot, but I thought that it was pretty easy to understand for the most part. There were some parts that were pretty complex, but I would recommend it, but also ignorance is bliss, so maybe you don't want to read it. Next, we have Crooked Kingdom. I started this book last winter break and I didn't finish it, and then I got it from the library at school and I didn't finish it, and then I finally got it this summer and I was like, I'm finishing this dang book, and I started back at the beginning, so I was like, there's no point in starting from where I was. And I read the whole thing. It took me like a month and a half or so, maybe 2 months, I don't even know, because it's so long, but it's not because it's not good. It's such a good book. It's a sequel to Six of Crows. It's a duology, and it's so good. Six of Crows also took me forever to read. They're just long books, but they're so good. It's basically, how I describe it, is a found family fantasy story. It's set in a completely different world, the Grishaverse, where there are some people that have magical powers, but it's not really magical. It's like scientific based powers, which I think is so cool. We have 6 main characters, and it alternates between their points of view, but it's all in third person. The writing is wonderful. The first book takes place in Ketterdam, which is kind of like Amsterdam. All the countries are based off of real places, and it takes place in Fjerda because basically this group of misfits, I guess, or whatever, gets this mission. There's this drug going around that, I'm so bad at describing books. There's this drug called Yordaparum that makes Grisha's powers stronger, but then they get addicted to it, and basically it uses them up until they die, and they need to find the person that made the drug. I read this book a while ago, okay? I don't judge this off of my ability to make a synopsis, because it's really good. The found family vibes are just phenomenal. Like, I love the characters so much. They all have such wonderful arcs, and I love how real world issues are woven into the books at the same time, even though it's fantasy. And it's just amazing, amazing books. I have requested the Grisha trilogy, it's a lot shorter, and it takes place before these from the library, so I'm really excited to read those too. And then next we have Little Fires Everywhere. So I read this book and I watched the TV show, and I'm actually making a separate video talking about all the differences between the book and the TV show, what I liked and disliked, because I was going to put that in this video and then I realized that would just be way too long. So I'll just talk a little bit about the book. Basically, it follows 2 women, I guess are the main characters, but it really follows everyone. Elena Richardson is a mother. She has 4 children with her husband, and they live in the suburbs. It's called Shaker Heights in Ohio, and this single mom named Mia and her daughter Pearl come to live in Shaker Heights, and basically everything just blows up from there. It's about the friendships and romantic interests of the children and their lives, and it's about the tension between these mothers, and then Elena's friend, Linda, has always wanted to have a child, and they're the same age, and Elena has this whole family, but Linda has never been able to have a child. She just has miscarriage after miscarriage, and they've tried to adopt, and there was this baby that was abandoned, and they took it in, they adopted it, or they're in the process of adopting this baby, and then the mother shows up and wants custody of the child, even though she abandoned it. So it's like this whole issue, and Mia and Elena are on opposing sides of it. It becomes a court case, and everything blows up from there. So I personally actually like the TV show better than the book, which I'll talk about more in that video. There was nothing wrong with the way it was written and like the writing style itself. I thought the writing was good, but just the omniscient point of view made it really hard for me to connect with the characters or really feel like I was like following any one of them, because it would just jump from character to character whenever, which I think is a unique way of telling a story, and I think it was fine, and maybe some people like that, but for me, I really like following. If it's gonna switch points of view, I want to be with one person for a chapter and then switch to another person, because it would just go like everywhere. It would kind of jump in time too, like it would say later so-and-so would think on this and wonder blah blah blah, or later this would happen, but they didn't know that yet. So it was like this all-knowing narrator all the time, just like panning between these different scenes. So it just wasn't my cup of tea in terms of that style, but I liked the story, even though the ending literally frustrated me so badly. I looked ahead, I just wanted to know what happened, and I almost threw the book across the room. But it's fine. And then finally we have Save the Date, which I'm currently reading. Morgan Matson, my favorite author of all time. This is my only book of hers that I haven't read. If you guys haven't read Morgan Matson, seriously, her books are just so good. Like, I aspire to write books like hers. Like, I want my books to have the same feel. Like, there's so many little threads, like nothing's in there by accident. Like, anything that's mentioned is like woven in later, and you're like, oh my god. It's like the little details she does are so good. I love her characters and the worlds that she creates, and I love the little cameos between the books. It's just so good. In this book, it's about a girl named Charlie. She's part of a really big family, and all of her siblings are older than her, and her older sister is getting married. It spans the weekend of the chaos before the wedding, because basically everything that can go wrong goes wrong. And it's really funny and heartwarming. I love the characters so much, and it's this feeling of nostalgia. Her parents are selling the house, so she wants to soak up as much time with her siblings in this house as she can, because it has so many memories. There's romantic interest stuff going on, there's a little bit of a love triangle. It's so good, and I can't wait to finish reading it. Alright, now for movies. The first movie I watched is One Child Nation. It's a documentary on Amazon Prime about one child family policy. Definitely very eye-opening and disturbing at times, but it was really interesting, and I'm glad that I watched it. Next, we have Midsommar. My mom like is in denial that we watched this movie. She's like, I never saw that movie. Like, I don't know what you're talking about, because she hated it so much. I would consider this a horror movie. Suspense horror, I don't know. I hate horror movies. Like, I do not watch horror movies. The only kinds of movies I'll watch are like more suspense-based horror movies, like The Sixth Sense, which was amazing. The Boy, my friends in the dorm sophomore year convinced me to watch that because they're like, oh, it's not that scary. And like, I could handle that because there's like a real world explanation for it. When there's actual supernatural stuff that's happening, well, I guess The Sixth Sense really did have supernatural stuff happening, but it wasn't like too scary. Anyway, I watched Insidious, which was a terrible mistake, and that movie still haunts me to this day. Like, when there's actual like supernatural stuff happening, I can't deal with it. So Midsommar, like, there was nothing like that. So when I looked at the trailer and the stuff, I was like, I could probably handle this, like, it's fine. And yeah, okay, there's nothing supernatural that happens, but it's still just so twisted. And it all takes place in daylight, and I read up on a lot of like analyses of the film and everything, which I do think that like there were messages to it. Like, it really showed Danny being the only person that realized something was wrong, and it's like that feeling when everyone else is like, oh no, it's fine, and like you feel that something's wrong, but no one else is acknowledging it. And it really showed her being isolated. And then I don't know what it means. This is spoilery, I guess, so if you're gonna watch this movie and you haven't, just mute this for a second. But I just don't get the ending. So she wins, she stays in this community when everyone else, all of her other friends got killed. Like, why did she win the thing? Like, I don't know. The end was just so creepy. I guess it's showing that she finally found a place where she belonged. Okay, well, anyway, I wouldn't watch this movie again, ever. I don't even know, guys. There were so many disturbing things that happened. Next is San Andreas. Ever since I watched The Impossible, I've been on the search for more disaster movies because I loved it so much. And The Impossible really isn't focused on the disaster itself, it's more the aftermath, but San Andreas is really just death and destruction the whole time. But there's also like a family story and a romance story, and I loved this movie. It was so good. It's just based on what would happen if the San Andreas fault big earthquake happened. It was very suspenseful and very good, and like the story of the characters really had me. I'm not gonna spoil anything, but it's really good if you haven't seen it. Next we have Roxanne. So this was just on TV when my parents and I were in Pismo Beach earlier this summer, and it's okay. It's based on I forget what the name of the like story trope is, but this guy has a crush on a girl and he asks the other guy to write letters for him because he doesn't know how to talk to girls or whatever, and then the other guy falls in love with the girl and she thinks she's falling in love with the guy, but she's actually falling in love with the guy who's writing the letters. Whatever that story's called. I thought it was okay, nothing super special. And then we have Knives Out. I watched this on Amazon Prime. This was so good. I love this movie. It's a mystery about a murder in a family after a family party, and it just had so many twists and turns, and it was so good and enjoyable to watch. Next we have And So It Goes. I am honestly trying to remember what this movie was about. It's like an older couple romance, I guess, and I think it was pretty good. I think it's this guy, the guy's estranged son has to go to prison or something, so he brings his daughter for the guy to take care of, and then the older lady that lives in the same apartment complex or condo complex or whatever helps him, and then they fall in love. And there's like other stuff that happens, but yeah, it was okay. I wouldn't watch it again. Next we have My Best Friend's Wedding. I also thought this one was okay. I just found this movie really depressing, honestly. This girl's best friend is getting married and she's in love with him, but she doesn't know how to tell him, and the whole thing was just cringy and I didn't like it very much, and it was really depressing in my opinion. And then we have The Switch. This was entertaining, not like super amazing, but basically Jennifer Aniston wants to have a child and she gets a sperm donor, but then at the last minute her best guy friend who has a crush on her switches out his sperm for the sperm donor's sperm when he's drunk, and he doesn't remember that he did it. And years later when she has the child and they meet up, he realizes that the child is his, and it's just like the drama that ensues from that. And then we have Life is Beautiful. This is an Italian film set during the Holocaust, and it's about this Jewish family, and it shows a little bit beforehand of how the dad and the mom met and got together, and then the dad and the son are taken to a concentration camp, and the dad pretends that it's a game. His son is obsessed with tanks, and so he makes up this whole elaborate story where they're doing this big game and the winner gets a tank. And like when the German soldiers come into the bunker to give instructions, he pretends that he's the one who knows German and he says he's going to translate, and then he says all the rules of the game because he can't actually understand what they're saying. Anyway, I don't know if that makes sense, but it was so good. It always takes like an extra level of concentration for me to watch foreign films because you have to read all the subtitles, but I thought it was really good and just really sweet. It was also obviously really sad. And then we have Hamilton. Okay, I know that people are gonna be like, you're so late to the bandwagon on this because it's literally been out since like 2013 or whatever. I know, okay, but I'm not someone who can get into musicals by just listening to the music. I have to see it. Like, all the musicals I'm into, I've seen, like the actual thing, except Next to Normal because we had to read that for my drama class, and so I just like listened to the musical, I read it, and I love it, but I've never seen the musical itself. But literally everything else, I saw it first before I got into it. Some things, I guess, my family like listened to the soundtrack when I was younger, and I was into the soundtrack before I saw it. But like in my later years, I don't just sit on Spotify and listen to musical soundtracks. Like, it's so hard for me to sit and concentrate and try to understand the story and what's happening without knowing. So we went over to our friend's house because they have Disney Plus. We just made a little movie night with our friends and we rewatched it there and it was so good. Now I love the music, now I love listening to it, but I definitely feel like I appreciate it much more having seen it than I would have if I had just listened to the music years ago. I understand the hype. When I first saw it I was like, yeah, that was good, and then all the songs got stuck in my head and I started listening to them obsessively, and I'm trying to think if I could give you guys a definitive favorites list, but like they're all my favorite. The ones that I have stuck in my head the most are Helpless and Satisfied, and I just love those songs. Those are definitely two of my favorites. I love Nonstop. That's like always my favorite song of a musical, or one of my favorite songs, like when everything comes together at the end of Act 1 and like all the different characters are on the stage singing their own songs and it all comes together. It's so good. I love Burn. Also, all of King George's songs are my favorites. I finally feel like I'm part of like a part of the culture, I guess, because there's so many references that I didn't get for so many years because I'd never seen it. Okay, now we have rewatches. I didn't do these last time, but I thought I would include the movies that I rewatched because I want to promote them because they're good. One of them is The Intern. I have seen this movie countless times. Anne Hathaway and Robert De Niro. Anne Hathaway is the CEO of a startup called About the Fit, and Robert De Niro is retired, and they hire senior interns because they have life experience, and he applies and gets the internship, and it's about their friendship and about her home life and his life. It's so good. It's so heartwarming, and I love that movie so much, but it's one that I find myself always going back to and watching. Next we have Rent, another musical for you there. I hadn't seen this movie in years. I, once again, saw the movie before I actually got into the music, but then for so many years I had just been listening to music, so I honestly forgot so much of what happened in the actual story, but watching it again was really fun. I'd literally forgotten, like I was watching it, like parts of it I was like watching for the first time, so it's like I actually don't remember what happens, but I just love that musical so much. That's one I've actually never seen on stage, but I had seen the movie. And then we have Hearts Beat Loud. I doubt that many of you have heard of this. It's kind of an indie film. I saw this with my dad for the first time when it came out, I think the summer between my sophomore and junior year of college, so it was summer of 2019. No, 18. And I love this movie. I really liked it when we first saw it. I watched it on the plane to Paris, actually. I watched Mamma Mia 2 and then Hearts Beat Loud on the plane. And then I watched it again in my apartment, I think, senior year, and then I just rewatched it for the 4th time. And it's about this girl who just finished high school and she's going to UCLA to be a doctor in the fall, and she lives in, I think it's Pennsylvania, somewhere on the East Coast with her dad, and they kind of form a band, and she's kind of resistant to the idea, but her dad like really encourages her to put aside her studying and like try to jam out with him, and they come up with this amazing song called Hearts Beat Loud, and he puts it on Spotify and like tries to get them gigs and stuff, and it's about her relationship with her dad and a bunch of other different things, threads woven into it obviously, and the way it's shot is kind of different. There are a lot of just like music montage-y things and little short scenes, which I guess is what makes it an indie film. I don't really know. It's kind of shot differently than other movies, but I don't know how to describe it. But I don't know, I just really love that movie. Again, it's one that I feel like I will come back to like later on, and I feel like it's about choosing what opportunities to take, I guess, and that you don't have to like do everything that you can. Like sometimes things are good for the time that they are, and you don't have to, everything doesn't have to last forever, I guess is kind of the message I took away from it, and it's just a movie that sticks with me. Okay, so next we have What a Girl Wants. I hadn't seen this movie in like 10 years. I watched it with my friend Hallie, if you guys have seen her, when we were at her family's cabin like so long ago. And I saw that it was on Netflix, and I was like, I kind of want to watch that again. And again, it was like watching it for the first time because I forgot everything. It's Amanda Bynes, and she lives with her mom in San Francisco, and it turns out that her dad is this, like, I think he's like part of parliament, I forget. He's running for something. I think he's running for prime minister or running for some government position in England, and her mom has never told her about him or what happened between them, but she goes over to England to find out, and it's a really sweet story. It's very cute, and it's heartwarming and fun, and yeah. And lastly, oh no, not lastly, we have 2 more. Something's Gotta Give. I really like this movie. I watched this sophomore year of college, and my mom and I watched it. It's Diane Keaton and I forget the guy's name. Basically, he's dating her daughter, and she's like way younger than him. and they go to her mom's beach house thinking that she's not there for the weekend, and then it turns out her mom is there with her sister, and they're all like, oh well, it's fine, we'll all just stay for the weekend. And then he ends up having a heart attack, and then the daughter has to go and the sister has to go, and Diane Keaton ends up there taking care of him, and they kind of end up falling in love, but it's like it ends badly and it spans many years, and she's also a writer, so she's working on a play, and then she ends up writing a play about what happened, which is friggin' hilarious. That whole part like had me laughing so hard both times I watched it. And I don't want to spoil what happens, but basically I feel like I already told you like half the plot. But it's really good. It's really funny. I find that movie very entertaining. And then we have Blended. I watched this in France on my roommate's Netflix when she let me use her Netflix one day because none of our streaming services worked over there, and like obviously I spent most of my time at school traveling, but like sometimes I really just wanted to like chill and watch a movie. So I watched that for the first time there, and I just watched it with my mom last weekend. It's about a single mom, Drew Barrymore, who has only boy children, and a single dad, Adam Sandler, who has only girl children. And his wife died, she's divorced, and they set up on a blind date and it goes terribly. And then basically they each, I'm so bad at explaining things like this. Okay, so Drew Barrymore's best friend was dating this guy who was gonna take her on this trip to South Africa. And it was a family, like a blended family moon trip. She didn't know he had kids until he dropped that bomb on her and he was gonna take her on this trip. And she's like, no, I don't want kids. And so she broke up with him. And so Adam Sandler works at Dick's, I think, and the guy is his manager. And so they both ask if they can go on the trip. And their friends are like, yeah. And then they both end up on the trip. So they're like on this blended family moon in South Africa together. It's really funny. It's cheesy at times, but I think it's really heartwarming and funny. It's just an all-around great rom-com with like serious undertones about like, you know, the mom dying, like family dynamics and stuff, but just for the most part really lighthearted and funny. And then lastly we have Legally Blonde. Nothing to say, really a classic. It was on after Blended, so we just ended up watching it. Even though I own it and I could have watched it without the commercial breaks. We just watched the whole thing on TV. Makes a lot of sense, I know. Always love that movie. Okay, next we have TV shows. So I'll just do rewatches first for TV shows, I guess. I rewatched Step Up High Water. I think I was talking about that last time, but I finished season 2 a while ago. So good. So good. This show does not get enough credit. Like, no one knows about it. It's on YouTube Premium. It was supposed to be moving to Stars and getting a season 3. Now that Naya Rivera died, I don't know if they're doing that. I hope they still do. I hope they make her character die in the show, though, because I don't want them to replace her character. That would be just weird. No, just figure it out. But I want a season 3. I want it. And I'm also rewatching Gilmore Girls. And then for new shows, I started watching Glee. I only got about partway through season 1. I was really into it for a while and then I just completely stopped watching it. I might pick it back up again, I don't know. It was entertaining, like it kept my interest, but it was like an interesting kind of humor, I guess. Like everything was very over the top. I loved the music. I was so into the music and some parts had me laughing so hard. But yeah, I might keep watching it. I don't know, we'll see. And then I watched Killing Eve. One of my new favorite shows. Like this went straight up to one of my all-time favorite shows. I binged it in like 4 days. It's so easy to binge. It's just 2 seasons. Well, it's 3 seasons, but only 2 of them are on Hulu. 3rd season isn't on there yet. They're 8 episodes and they're like 45 minutes, I think, each. I don't want to spoil too much. I feel like I've already been saying way too many spoilery things, but it's a crime murder, not really murder mystery because you know who did it really quickly, but it's like a suspense crime show, I guess is what I would categorize it as. And it follows the team of people who are investigating this assassin, and then it follows the assassin as well. And oh, it's so good. It's so good. And it's funny. There are so many good moments. I wish there were more crack videos, because when I watched Once Upon a Time, I was like so into all the crack videos. And I've watched every single Killing Eve crack video for season 1 and 2, and they're so good. And the Killing Eve's Vines ones, oh my god. It's so good. It's so good. And I can't wait for season 3. I cannot wait to watch it. I feel like that was such a terrible way of describing it, but I don't want to give anything away. I went into it knowing like nothing, and I want other people to go into it knowing like nothing. It's like a cat and mouse game is how I describe it, but just go into it knowing nothing. It's so good. And then I watched Little Fires Everywhere. Again, not going to talk about this a ton in this video. It was a TV adaptation of the book. I'm so glad they turned it into a mini series instead of just a movie because they could do so much more with it. I was so hooked. I watched it in just a couple days. I could not stop watching it because they changed so much from the book. I was like, what's gonna happen? Like, I literally don't know. And I'll talk about this more in the other video, but I really, really liked some of the things they changed. I think it worked so well. Other things not so much, but I will discuss that in the other video. And then lastly, we have Lost. I just started watching this like a week ago. I'm midway through season 1. I really like it. It's not something I would normally gravitate toward, but I thought I'd give it a try. It's on Hulu, and it's about this group of people that survive a plane crash on a deserted island, or so they think it's deserted. But there might be other stuff going on. No one really knows. It's mysterious right now. And it kind of flashes back into different people's backstories. You see what their life was like before the crash. It's really interesting. I like it, and I think I'm gonna keep watching it. So that is gonna be it for this video. Thank you guys so much for watching. Please, I would love to hear your guys' opinions. If you've read or watched any of these things, I want to know what you've read or watched in the last couple months and what your recommendations are. And yeah, please give this video a like and subscribe, and I will see you next time. I make videos every Monday. Bye!